So I'd like to talk about this particular sutta today. It's from the Anguttara Nikaya, and it's called Assemblies, and it's about community, community harmony, monks. These are the three communities or assemblies. What three? A community of the best, a divided community, and a harmonious community. And what is a community of the best? A community where the senior monks, the elders of the community, are not indulgent or slack, nor are they backsliders. Instead, they take the lead in seclusion, rousing energy for the attaining the unattained, achieving the unachieved, and realizing the unrealized. And those who come afterwards follow their example. They too are not indulgent or slack, nor are they backsliders. Instead, they take the lead in seclusion, rousing energy for the attaining of the unattained. This is called the assembly of the best, the community of the best. And what is the divided community? A community where the monks argue, quarrel, fight continually, wounding each other with barbed words, or
verbal daggers.
Stabbing each other, verbal daggers. This is called the divided community. And what is the harmonious community? A community where the monks live in harmony. They are peaceable, uncontentious, or mudita with each other, without quarreling, blending like milk and water, and regarding each other with kindly eyes. This is the harmonious assembly. And just the last bit, when the monks live in harmony like this, they make much merit. At that time, the monks live in a heavenly situation. That's my translation for the Brahma Vihara. They live in a heavenly situation. That is the liberated mind of non-contention, or the unconstricted mind of non-contention, the mind of mudita. When they are pleased, happiness springs up. When the mind is happy, the body becomes calm. When the body is calm, they feel at ease. And when they are at ease, the mind becomes composed. So there's a simile at the end, but I won't go into that. Anyway, so how to bring, how to have a harmonious community, whether it's monastic or just a householder, your family, any community, how to have harmony. How does one go about that? And for me, it seems to suggest there that when I think about harmony, you yourself have to be practicing harmonious qualities. You can't be doing things which give rise to trouble for yourself or others, i.e. unharmonious qualities, unwholesome qualities. You can't be doing that and expecting some basic unity within yourself or outside of yourself. Impossible.
Yeah. Well, so first thing is like people often confuse obedience for harmony. That's not necessarily harmonious. People might not voice their disagreement due to one reason or the other. If the authoritative setup or something, but that doesn't mean they regard each other with friendly eyes. So then you ask yourself, or anybody can ask themselves, what is the true cause of this harmony? Is it behavior of others, or is it ill will in my mind? Is it the mental pressure of annoyance and aversion that I cannot live with? Thus, I am addressing the circumstances and trying to change the world or people around me so I don't have to go through these mental states? Is that the reason for this harmony? Or is it the genuine things that other people do and then we just need to fix their behavior and we'll live in perfect harmony? So obviously the answer is quite evident. But that's the reason, really. So the reason for disharmony in any community, including the world itself, it's the minds of individuals. But that's hard to, it's not that hard to see, but it's kind of hard to admit because, well, first of all, it's painful. Mind of aversion is painful, so you want to get rid of it. Second of all, you do also want to see an immediate result of your effort towards harmony or whatever else. And you're not going to see an immediate result if you are the only one just basically addressing your mind while everybody else seems to not care about it. But then you realize, oh, but that's something you are also getting annoyed over. So one way or the other, you end up acting out of annoyance. And that's exactly what other people do. They act out of their annoyances, and that's why there is no harmony. So it's not about fabricating, using psychotherapeutical methods and stuff to regard each other with friendly eyes and just visualize the friendship. No, it's removing your own resistance to your own mind of ill will. Overcoming your own ill will means you will see everybody as a friend, basically, in that sense. You will not be able to hate them. And now, if every individual in that assembly does that, that is a divine community, because every individual addressed the root of the problem, as opposed to ignored the root of the problem, acted out of the root of the problem, and changed the world the way it thinks it should be. So whether it's assembly of 3 people or 5 people or the entire world, the root of the issue is always greed, aversion, delusion. But oh, well, it's not going to happen that everybody will address that. So I better then kind of attack others or try to change others and get a shortcut to the solution of the problem. But failing to understand that problem is still there. The framework of the problem, greed, aversion, delusion, has remained unchanged because you just fed it and acted out of it. And that's pretty much this, like a symptom of when people want to change the world, knowing themselves they carry those issues they're complaining against and trying to change in others, they carry in themselves. But they kind of act out of conviction that as long as they change the world first, then they'll be all right as well. But it's not. It's putting the cart in front of the horse. First things first. And that's your own greed, aversion, delusion. That's what the Buddha said. An arahant, a person who has completely uprooted the greed, aversion, delusion, has practiced for the benefit of the world as well, even if he doesn't care about the world. The fact is, there is one individual that has uprooted the source of all problems, of the entire samsara, of everything. And that's the greatest contribution to the world you can make. You can legislate, you can agree, you can learn the modes of behavior and etiquettes, how we relate to each other, so we don't argue and so on. But fundamentally, the community, the wellness of the community is measured by, it's the wellness, the healthiness of individuals, the mental health of individuals. Are they free from greed, aversion, delusion? Or are they not? Are they acting on account of a social agreement or on account of simply not being able to have ill will towards each other? And hence, that's a divine community. You're not going to reach you're not going to reach a divine community by creating a perfect social agreement that we all share the same values and ethical convictions and so on. Yeah, but mentally, still greed, aversion, delusion. Sooner or later, greed, aversion, delusion will have to find its way in a negative manner, because it's still there. Because our social agreement is rooted in greed, aversion, delusion, because we didn't want to deal with the mind. We wanted to address the society and then have things in order that way, which is kind of immediately satisfying and more quicker to verify and more pleasing. In other words, we were acting out of our desires and wanted to satisfy our desire for a perfect order, for what we think the perfect order is. But the root of the problem is the desire. So unless that changes...
Individually.
Exactly. Individual desire. So unless that changes, framework remains the same. So the problem has not been resolved, just permutated.
Yes, so, if you claim to care for others, then you really should see that it is you have to now remove those unwholesome things within yourself.
Well, yeah, you can care for others. You can care for others, but then you ask yourself, yes, but am I caring out of desire towards others, towards order of the world that requires others? Or do I care because I am desireless, because I have no capacity for ill will, lust, or distraction? So I just simply wish people well. On paper, both people care, but one is simply rooted in I care because I want to satisfy my desire of a perfect world that I like to think I'm living in, and so on. And that's not, I mean, it's not as unwholesome as not caring at all, but it's certainly not wholesome on the level of uprooting your desire and really fixing the problem. You kind of feel that, like, oh, well, if I just start uprooting my desires, there is nothing immediately verifying it. The world seems to ignore my contribution. There is no feedback. There is nothing. There is no reward. There is no satisfaction. So then it's just easier to just, but let's just go and change the world. Let's unite us, all of us, and change the world for the better, while individually we act out of the same desires that those people who changed the world for the world had. So the desire, that's what Buddha said, the desire is the most blameworthy. You can have all sorts of, lofty ethical standards, moral standards. That's nice, but it's all well within samsara. It makes no difference to samsara. So are you talking from the point of view of simply having kind of, an agreeable, pleasant life in the current society, for which, you don't need Buddha's instruction, just some common sense? Or are you talking for like a genuine, uprooting of the problem, fixing the individuals towards liberation? And that's why the Buddha compared that type of community to like a community of Brahmas, because it's nothing short of that.
Yeah. But even in the worldly sense, if a individual is practicing wholesome things, restraining themselves, having some values in morality, and restraining themselves, that's already the community that will grow around that person.
It is.
Will be, a heavenly type of situation.
Eventually, yeah. But that's where the patience has to come in. People, like, even if they know that the root of the problem is desire, they feel justified in aiming at the other people, at the society, at the arrangements, aiming at the, at that level of change, because they feel like, well, there is not enough time. It takes too much time for me to be addressing my own, desires and cravings, tidy up my own room. It just takes too much time for that. Let's just go and tidy up a mess around us, and then we'll tidy up our rooms. But the mess around us is the mess of individual untidy rooms. That's it. But they feel like there is not enough time, so they feel justified in sort of addressing it on that projected level. But the problem is you're not addressing anything, because again, the problem of the mess is the problem that every individual brings through its own desires. And if that has not been addressed, means the framework for the mess remains. You have just reordered it in a pleasing manner. It's still the same mess. And but yes, even in like a completely worldly terms, it would still actually matter if you not just address your own desires, tidy up your own room, but actually if that's the example you set. That's when you have like back in the day the Buddha talked about it, when you have wholesome societies, when these values were shared among people. So they were not confused, they were not impatient, they were not lying to themselves or convincing themselves that they should be, addressing things on the level of the world, but they knew to take responsibility for their own desires, for their own behaviors, for their own virtue and morality. And then the community was fine. Because if every individual addresses its own domain, the collection of those individuals, i.e. the society, will have no issues. But somebody has to start it, especially once the society has lost its ways in terms of, ethical standard and virtue and so on. yes, somebody has to start re-educating in that sense through its own example, not through force or like brainwashing, basically, because that's again you're rooted in your own desires. You're not changing anything.
So yeah, you want a united community, a harmonious community. You must harmonize yourself.
Exactly, and that means you must remain within, or you must remain in internal harmony, even if others are not doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Now, as you say, there needs to be someone needs to start that, and such a person, being amongst, who has elders who are unwholesome, the whole society is unwholesome, the community, the mother, father, brothers and sisters, everyone's unwholesome, and then that one person decides, understands wholesome and sticks to that. That is amazing. And then for a community to grow around that person, amazing.
Yeah.
And then it's incredible. The Buddha, for example, a great example. But there are other communities out there in the world that's happened presently and in the past, that there's always had to be some person who had to do that.
Yeah.
And then there were always elders. There were always elders in the community who had to keep on doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those elders have to, in a way, you have to realize the responsibility that you have, as a parent, as an elder, a leader in the community, that, yeah, people are looking up to you. There's newcomers. So, for the welfare of future generations, you need to keep up this harmony. You need to keep the standard of goodness.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing it for yourself, basically. You just incidentally is contributing for the welfare of the future generations.
Yeah.
But you are doing it because you prefer to do it, because exactly through the practice of doing it, you have uprooted the desire, the aversion, and the unwholesome qualities. So now you actually prefer to stay in that mode. You have no desire to return back to, chasing desires and being projected out there onto the world and trying to change the circumstances and so on, which all kind of implies your desire one way or the other.
So that like just that responsibility in a way from the disciples of that teacher, or the one that learned from that elder. If you want your community to be harmonious for generations to come, then you need to do that work internally.
Yeah, but again, like whether you want the community or not, you realize it doesn't matter. You don't have, even if you have no desire towards any community, if you uprooted desire in yourself, that is setting the example, whether you want it or not, whether you intend to do that or not.
Sure. If you're practicing wholesome things, developing wholesome qualities, whether you want to or not, harmony is the result.
Yeah. One way or the other, that is being perceived by others, even if you don't necessarily make a mission out of, showing the world and changing everybody through your own, inner harmony and practice and virtue and so on. It will stand out. It will be for the benefit. It will be for the benefit of the world.
And the opposite, even if you are wishing harmony, you have this great
exactly.
process of community, but you are acting unwholesomely, you're doing unwholesome things.
Yeah.
Well, no matter how much you wish, it's not going to work out.
Yeah. And that's pretty much, that's the problem always, people generally today operate on that projected level of the world. The views are on the level of the world, responsibilities on the level of the world. Blame the world, blame the governments, blame this kind of, more distant sense of others. It's other people. But again, it's all rooted in the individuals. So unless you yourself are free from desire, you are equally blameworthy. And that's exactly what the Buddha said. The only blameless one is the one that has uprooted greed, aversion, delusion. He cannot be, he can be blamed, but he's blameless. None of that blame sticks to him. Because he's not partaking in the framework of the problem, which is desire.
One thing you said a little while ago, I think it was in one of the YouTube videos, that when someone was asking about war, going to war, and that you were saying that somebody, to end hate, to end the war, somebody has to take the punch and not retaliate. Not retaliate. That's kind of what you were saying. Someone has to take it.
Yeah.
There is going to be a fight somewhere along the line. Someone's going to come and punch you. But if you want the fight to stop, then you can't retaliate.
Yeah.
You're going to have to take that punch and just let it cool down.
Yeah.
Someone's going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so what do you value? Do you truly value peace, non-violence? Are those your standards? Or if pushed, your standards are to, well, I'm going to have a last say or a last punch. In which case, well, see, you don't truly value those things that you say you value. So injustice, violence, that is what the world is, because world is rooted in desire. Because world is made out of individuals whereby every single living being acts out of the desire. And that's why there are problems. I mean, the Buddha said that himself. Sons fight with fathers, fathers with mothers, with daughters, kings with kings, countries with the countries. Why? Because of the sensual desire. That's it. That's the sole reason for all the conflict within one family or multiple families or the entire kingdoms. It's sensual, it's the desires. That's it. People's desires. They will have to reach a conflict because not all desires can be the same. So if you truly value the end of conflict, means you must truly value ending of your own desire, not act out of desire for the ending of the conflict. Becomes a contradiction in terms.
That people can be unified with hate. We are friends because we hate the
same thing. Yeah, common enemy. Yeah,
common enemy. And then when me and you now, who are friends because we hate the common enemy, we go and we destroy that enemy, and everything's fine. Life goes back to normal. We come back into our homes, and what do we still have? We still have that value of hatred, of fighting, of killing, of fighting against that which is uncomfortable for us. We don't want that.
That which is unacceptable to us. Yeah.
We have that attitude.
Yeah.
And so now what's going to happen? Now we were friends, united in hate. Now we're enemies. We'll be enemies. We're fighting. You're fighting with your father, your friends, your neighbors. Exactly.
And so before long, we might become someone else's unifying enemy.
Exactly. And the world the world keeps turning.
And world goes back to normal for the time being. How is that measured? That's measured by I go back to my desires that I can fulfill. My safety, my sensuality, the access to the senses. That's how people measure normality. Through to basically how much their desires regain access to things they want. And because of that, then you are like at peril of losing it, because the slightest change in circumstances, internally or externally, you will lose the access, means you will lose the safety, means you're back to where you were before. So all your victories meant nothing.
Yeah, turmoil. Yeah. Basically turmoil.
And that comes down to that other thing, the possessions we spoke about before. That's what makes you liable to suffer.
And this, when it says in the sutta, when the monks live in harmony like this, they make much merit. At that time, the monks live in a heavenly situation. This is the liberated mind of mudita.
Yeah.
But the mind liberated as in unconstricted.
Yeah. Not bound, not basically tethered to the weight of desires and possessions and sensual satisfactions and so on.
So that mind being liberated, being unconstricted, being so large and expansive, when something occurs in the world, whatever happens, a natural disaster or an army comes and destroys that mind, which has been liberated through acts of wholesome acts, to acts of peace, values of peace, and so on,
And wisdom
doesn't get moved.
Exactly.
And wisdom doesn't get moved. That mind is harmonious. It's a harmony, that a samadhi which is not moved.
Yeah, it's composed. It's composed on the level that cannot be perturbed by changes in the world, no matter of the scale of the changes. And that's pretty much what everybody wants. Even people that go and fight for desires and try to change things and, modify the world, they do because for the same reason. They don't want their minds to be perturbed by things that are disagreeable. So although it's a good intention, it's sort of aimed at the wrong things. It's aimed at the wrong. It's aimed to basically where the problem isn't.
Yeah.
And that's why the harmony that the Buddha talks about in those suttas, it's measured by the mind states of those individuals, not by the, as I said, by the etiquette and how often they bow to each other and softness of the words that they use. No, it's measured by the inability to have thoughts of ill will towards each other. Like genuinely, minds are so developed, expanded through correct endurance, proper understanding, virtue, and so on, that they cannot turn towards each other with ill will. It's just impossible, inconceivable. Taking up ill will becomes inconceivable. And that's the perfect harmony. That's why the purest, the cleanest, the best of the assemblies, it's like the assembly of arahants, as Buddha said. It's the highest merit you get by helping that type of assembly. It's basically assembly of individuals. It's not a group. Arahants are not a group. It's every individual, fully purified. So imagine the purity of a group when there is no group. It's just individuals free from greed, aversion, delusion. That's the divine assembly. Assembly that has not projected its views on the level of others and they and us and the group. That group ownership that dissolves your individual responsibility. That covers it up. The group identity. None of that exists in an assembly of arahants. They are unmoved by any of that. And that's why they are the purest and the highest.
And I was just thinking about the word, harmony. Wise, when two people are in harmony, you could also say that they are in agreement with each other.
Yeah.
There's no disagreement.
Yeah, but you can, as with anything else, that can have two meanings. It can have a worldly meaning, or it can have a meaning that pertains to the practice of Dhamma. So they're in harmony because we do the same things externally, or we are in harmony because both of our minds have developed in the same direction of uprooting ill will, lust, delusion, and everything else. So that is also a type of harmony. It's just not visible and measurable harmony as uniformity is.
And that's the mind which is in agreement. This might sound funny. The mind which is in agreement with reality. There's a concord with reality. It doesn't. It's not in a disagreement with reality. It's not taking feelings as mine.
Right. Yeah. Well, see, no. I mean, reality is not the best word there, because for a mind not developed, reality is its desire. Is its greed, aversion, delusion. That is the reality. Very real reality.
Well, what is a better word then?
Well, why would you need a better word? Just harmony.
Yeah, the mind,
So the mind that it's basically in agreement with the principle of non-ill will, or you can say desirelessness, and any of those terms, be agreement with any of that means you will be developed in that regard. In tune with,
like
you could say that. Yeah.
In tune, exactly. It's in tune with the Dhamma.
Exactly, with the principles of Dhamma, not in that some sort of esoterical sense, but simply with the principles of non-ill will, non-aversion, non-lust, non-distraction, non-desire. So tune yourself to that, or to any of that for that matter, and you are heading in the right direction. But when I say tune yourself to that, doesn't mean have wishful thinking that tunes you to that, but actually act accordingly. And put that as the criteria for your behavior by body, speech, and mind. Now, basically, by being virtuous, by seeing the danger in the slightest fault, by being moderate in eating, by guarding of the sense doors, not giving in to sensual desires, by not acting out of ill will, out of things that annoy you, by bearing it and enduring it, as Buddha said, the way you would endure the elements, then you will understand, sure, and then yes, you will be in tune. But it's not a question of figuring it out so to be in tune. The question is of enduring it rightly, putting in the work of non-acting and so on, not acting out and so on, and then you will be in tune, yes.
Yeah, in agreement.
Yeah, then you will align yourself with those principles.